Speaking of podcasts,
Right.
that's a nice little segue there, isn't
Yeah.
it? Can I ask you some questions?
Yep.
He's like, no,
Open.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Depends on what you're going to ask. Um, so first, I can edit this beautifully afterwards. So I'm going to
Yeah.
welcome you to the Art of Feeling Better. So I couldn't think of a better name for the podcast because that's literally what I'm trying to do is just support people in how to feel a little bit less shit, which is quite a task, isn't it? So, and I've been dying to catch up with you for ages since I decided to do it. I think this is going to be episode 23 because I left a nice little gap because we meant to meet last week before my life went into a small spot of chaos. So I've left this slot open and it's actually meant to go out this morning. So it'll just go out tonight instead.
Yeah.
But I wanted to catch up with you for ages because you and I have been connected for a few years now, haven't we? So I can't remember how many years ago it was, but we met at Facebook head office in London. And it was the first
Yeah.
time I met Tanya and Suzanne properly as well, because I'd been chatting with them online, but I met them for the first time on that day. And I can remember it so well because I was getting involved with all the workshops and I was looking at the fact that they had like a pick and mix wall in the middle of Facebook head office. It was like this incredible space. And then it was all to do with mental health and community building, wasn't it? And there was so many people that were doing talks. I was listening, really interested, and lots of good information. And then you were the keynote at the end. You were the last speaker, weren't you? Do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
remember?
That's right.
I've seen you a few times. You were the last speaker. And I was just kind of like, I was sat on the front row. And then you come on with a baseball cap on, jeans, just like, so I immediately was like, oh, I already like him. He's real. He's like, I'm just interested in what you had to say just because you had a different vibe. So, and I was there on my own because the lady that I was meant to be going with couldn't make it. So I'd gone all the way from Wales to London. I kind of knew Suzanne and Tanya just from socials. But you know what I'm like? I was like, I don't care anyway. I'm going to rock in there and just see who I meet because I'm meant to be here. And I was just sat in between two suits. I only read time, so I was trying to kind of blend in as much as I could and just kind of scope the place out. And as you were talking, you were starting to speak about Trylife and your story and how you developed it. I was just like could resonate so much. I was like, oh, this guy totally gets it. This guy's like on the front line, totally knows what it's like to be working in a field. And I was looking around and I could see other people getting it, but other people were just kind of like, hello, another speaker. I was like, no, this is something different. And then you played Jacob's story, right? So you played on the screen. And I'm not particularly an emotive person in public, particularly. I'm kind of known for being pretty good with my emotions. But I was doing that like hiccup sobbing thing because it just I'm on the front row and like on my own, not knowing anyone, bright red hair, full of tattoos, just because it just like hit me and I thought, God, that's powerful media. That is just powerful storytelling. And then I stalked you for a little bit. So I was like, right, I'm going to catch him before he goes. And everybody was doing the same thing when you come off the stage. I thought, I was just going to be pissed off with people just hounding him at this point. Like, just going to give me this business card. I will be in touch. And I think we had I don't know, I think I'd seen you again. I was in London for another reason and I'd seen you again somewhere. And we had a beer. And then we've got on ever since because we're both on the same mission, I think. Trying to do the same kind of thing in a slightly different way. Against all the odds, like David and Goliath shit, and with very limited resources, but having massively high impact because it's the right thing to do, because it's needed. So I think that's why we kind of get each other a little bit. So I really want my audience, my little audience at the moment, but growing. So hopefully it will be a massive audience soon. Just to know about you, about who you are, and about Trylife and what you've done. So if you can give me like the whistle stop, I mean, it takes as long as you want actually, but if you tell me as much as you want to share about what made you start Trylife, your story, how it came about, that'd be epic.
Yeah, so I was volunteering in a local community centre close to mine. I was going to the gym actually when I was a young'un, and there'd been like riots not long before in the northeast, and I was like accessing the gym, and one of the workers just sort of said to us, "Will you come and help out with some of the younger kids because they're giving me loads of grief?" And so I went and I started helping out with like a young boys group, and we were taking them like rock climbing and canoeing and stuff like that. I didn't realize at the time I was being like youth worked on myself, and so I just like I started helping out, and then I was looking like like a couple of the staff done like some like very quick like explanations of like why they were in the community, the kind of work they were doing, about social deprivation, and like that whole cycle of like low aspirations, and it just fascinated us, like the I guess it was like the sociology side of things that fascinated us. And then I found it dead easy to work with some of these young people that some of the youth workers found difficult to engage with.
Mm.
Partly because I was from the area, but like I'd been um, brought up in like one of the toughest housing estates in the northeast. So it was easy for me to engage with these young people anyway. So I started volunteering. I'd left school with like very few qualifications, started resitting like my English and maths GCSEs at the community centre. And before I knew it, I was a young dad. I was 17 when I was a dad. My son was in the creche, and my partner at the time was accessing mother and toddler groups, and I just started getting more and more involved in the community centre. And I'd done my part-time youth and community work course there, and then I started getting like bits of sessional work, doing work, like paid work at play schemes, which I always loved, especially with the younger kids, like the tiny little kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was brilliant that like creating big cardboard dinosaurs and stuff like that with them, and like just getting them out and about.
Yeah.
And then I started getting like a bit of sessional work in other housing estates local to here. And eventually I ended up being a community development worker up in Asherton, which is a little bit further north, like the next mining town. And then from there, uh, I worked in Southeast London with inner city gangs. I ended up working on a homeless project out in Jamaica. I left Jamaica, worked on in Bradford after the race riots as an area community development manager, and uh, there was a production company got in touch, and they were wanting to make a film about teenage pregnancy, and they were like trying to get into housing estates up north, and they were from like London, and they couldn't get
Yep.
access, like they couldn't get the right kind, like they couldn't get real people. And so I went and worked on that project, and that was the first time I'd worked in media, and like combined like sort of media with like sort of youth work and community development principles, I think. And that project ended up winning a BAFTA. I left Bradford, came back to the Northeast, and I was working at Bernardo's teenage pregnancy team. And we'd won All Parliamentary Award, British Midwifery Award, British Medical Journal Award. Um, and for work with young dads, I was working with young dads like as a progression worker. So I was trying to get like young dads like into work or into college, into training. And at the time, so like by this time, my son was 17-year-old. So I'd like sort of come full circle,
Wow.
and I'm now taking my son to work with these young dads, and I'm like, see that little baby you've got there, like that was me back in the day, and like this is what your little baby's going to turn into, like like a fully grown man.
Yeah.
So it was brilliant having him do a work experience with us for that week. It was really good.
Well, good memories as well for both of you.
Aye, aye. And like like my son was like the first one in the family to go to university. He got like he'd done amazing at his GCSEs and his A levels. He went to King's. He eventually got a first in social economics and political theory. He's like now a chartered accountant, lives on the quayside. He's almost 30-year-old. Do you know what I mean? Like he's 30 next birthday, and it's like wow. Um,
How did that
and
happen? Mine's 25 this September. I'm like, I'm only 15 in my head. What's going on?
I'm like, I can't understand how he's nearly 30 because I'm only 40. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then like I had my daughter when I was 20, sorry. And, both the kids are just like absolutely brilliant. And, I've always said to, well, especially my daughter, because she's got two sons now. So, I always said to my daughter, just be a better parent than what I was. And that's all I try to do. Do you know what
Cycle
I mean?
breaker, aren't you? You're a cycle breaker that shows it doesn't have to follow through. If you've had a bit of a shitty start to life, it doesn't matter what
Aye.
you can, things can be different, can't they?
Aye, that's it, man. And like, it's beautiful to see. Like, she's just an absolutely fantastic mother, like absolutely brilliant. And like my
I
two
see on
grandsons
on your
are,
social. Like,
are class,
yeah,
It's lush, man.
yeah.
So when I was at Bernardo's, uh or just before Bernardo's actually, when I was like sort of like just trying to get myself like established back in the Northeast, another production company had got in touch, and they were making a film about knife crime. And obviously, I'd worked in Southeast London with inner city gangs, so I jumped on that project, and that ended up winning a Royal Television Society award. It was a short film about knife crime called Shank, and like we worked with youth offending team and like perpetrators of knife crime basically, and made this short film. And like I started to see like how I could like use like through them two experiences how I could use media to engage with young people. And plus I sat in that generation, so like I was brought up with like choose your own adventure books, but I was brought up with me Spectrum and like early games, and like and then going from me Spectrum to Amiga to like PlayStation, and like all pre social media, thank God, when I
Yeah.
was a teenager. And then like uh was present when social media came about, and like sort of sat on the fence and like bridged that gap from like old school youth workers who are out doing traditional youth work, like outreach and detached work and center-based work. And like I'd always like been brought up with video games, and my kids have been brought up with video games and like and the internet. And I just I saw the opportunities there. So a job had came up with the BBC. So I went and worked with the BBC for a bit on a project called BBC Blast, where I would go into an area 3 months before like this big truck would come, and it had like recording studio, like the back of the truck would open up basically, and I had like recording studios and stuff like that. So it was great, man. Honestly, like I would go and engage with community projects. This was pre Bernardo's and all actually. So I'd go and engage with like community groups and youth services and schools and colleges, and then I would put like talent in, so it'd be like the guys who like created like Wallace and Gromit, or like say like a caller doing like lyric workshops, or Miss Dynamite, or it would be like weather reporters, radio production, fashion, music, and it was just like it was just brilliant, like going and engaging with the youth groups, and then bringing in like like proper
Yeah.
talent that they would recognize,
Vegan,
and
isn't it?
it'd be like a weekend of like make a film or do some graffiti or try some fashion or whatever. And
This is why we
um,
connected, because that's exactly what I was doing in Wales all these years later. It's like, no,
yeah,
do it's the right way to do it.
of course it is, man. Of course it is, and just giving real opportunity, and like, that helped us actually with my job as like a progression worker at Bernardo's, because like a lot of the young men just wanted to go and work in a warehouse or whatever, and they were just wanting money, money, money. And Fiona, who I was working with, was working with young women, and a lot of the young women wanted to go into like hair and beauty or like travel. And they wanted to go to college first. The young men wanted a job, but there was like an extra cycle for me. So they just wanted to go and get the warehouse job because it was like £200-300 a week. But I knew for a fact it would only last 3-4 weeks, especially in winter. Then they
Mhm.
would come back through, and then they would go to college. So there was like an extra step, like you know, for me engaging with the young men. But we've done some amazing work, man, like in the Northeast. And then with us having done that for the BBC, we applied for some money from like I think it was Children in Need and a couple of other pots of money, because what I was wanting to do was like say take like a group of young dads to the theatre through the day and meet like all the stage hands and the electricians and the lighting engineers and like the actors, and get them like on stage and get them meeting the cast while the cast were still wearing like the normal clothes, and then take them back at night time for the theatre show, because a lot of the young people that I was engaging with, like even going to the theatre would be like a massive cultural step for them. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just not accessible. But like by going and meeting Jane and meeting Paul or whatever, and then at night time meeting their character, like and seeing them on stage with the whole thing, I was like wanting to like try and show them like a different career path.
Nice.
And so like in the back of my mind anyway, when I was at Bernardo's, I knew my contract was only like a 2-3 year contract, and the financial crisis hit, and all services to young people were stripped. So all the services that my son benefited from, like from Sure Start, children's centres, breakfast clubs, after school clubs, libraries, swimming pools, you name it, like all of that support was gone. But like not just gone for the young people, like all of that support was gone for the parents as well. Like I think of all the support that I had, and Kerry, who's the kid's mom, all the support she had, like that definitely helped us, and it helped like like as a family.
Mm.
And so like I just thought there's got to be a way to be able to engage with young people using like traditional forms of youth work and community development type work, but like also like engaging with the social media generation. And the more I looked into it, the more like I started to uncover like young people. It's the most connected generation Britain's ever known. It's the most ethnically diverse generation Britain's ever known. They spend more hours consuming like media than they get sleep. And now with television, back in the day when me and you were watching adverts about like crossing the road or
Crossroad man and putting your seatbelt on and all. Yeah.
like smoking campaigns or whatever it was, like you could bombard people with information and know the message would get through. And this generation now can fast forward, rewind, binge watch, and just filter out all of that content.
Yeah.
In traditional forms of media are out the window because people are no longer sitting back anymore and just consuming media out of 4 or 5 channels. You've now got like 1,000 channels on the television plus millions of channels online, and you can just filter stuff out. But the trick is, if you get the message right, people will readily share the work, and if you get it wrong, like that's it, like it's gone. So I thought, like, when I was a kid, when I used to read them old choose your own adventure books, I thought, like, there's got to be something in that, because I used to love reading a story. I turn to page 10 to go to the haunted castle, or turn to page 15 to go to the enchanted forest. And then you would like make a choice and then end up down a route. And if you died, you would go back and make different choices. And I thought, like, well, that's what you do as a parent, isn't it? Or as a youth worker, you try to say, don't do that because this will happen. Or uh look at the consequences of like that action or whatever. So I what did I do? It was like this was like 2008. So I started putting together like a business. I started writing down like some ideas, and then I managed to get some little bits of seed funding from like Northern Film and Media. Then I went to the director of public health and said, like, look, I've got this idea to create this. And then it eventually ended up leading to where I drew down like 200,000 euros from European Regional Development Fund to create like this interactive film series. What I didn't realize is, um, well, like 90 pages of script is like a traditional film, and we had wrote like 455 pages of script, which is like two-thirds of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, right? And we'd created the world's most complex interactive film ever made.
It still blows
But
my
like,
mind. It just, yeah.
and well, like, because we didn't know where the next bit of funding was coming from, like the lead character in the first episode like had to pretty much endure everything. So how it works is a scene will play out, and then it'll pause, and then you decide, do you go to the party, yes or no? Do you? And then if you go to the party, we filmed. So we film all of the outcomes. So imagine a family tree. That's what it looks like when it's mapped out. And when you get to the party, we filmed. You'll either get offered a spliff or you'll get offered a pill, and it's random. The game engine will pick which one, and it's up to you if you say yes. But everything in Trylife has a consequence. So you could take the pill and be fine, but the next day she's going to be on a massive come down and like not perform at all in the exam. Um, if you smoke a spliff, you're either going to be instantly ill or you're going to be okay. But even if you're okay, she's going to like forget a pen, and like everything's got consequences. It's a little bit more complex than that, but like just for speed, um, like everything has a knock-on effect. And if you go, if the character has unprotected sex, um, we wanted to like what we wanted to do with the choices give people real choice. So give them like, so if the character's gonna smoke a spliff, she's gonna go and smoke a spliff, like, yeah, I'll smoke that. No, she could end up like ill or end up okay. If the character has sex with her boyfriend, it's like she'll stop and go like, wait, do you have a condom? And he'll say no, and it's up to you if you say yes or no. So if you say no, he's gonna try it on again, or if you say yes, she'll be like, yeah, yeah. But then we stop it again. Like, are you sure you want to do this? And if she says yes, she has unprotected sex. Obviously, you don't get to see it. You know what I mean? It's like a teenage drama type thing, but it's implied like what's happening. And the next day, she'll go to school and say to one of her friends, "Oh my God, me and Theo had sex yesterday, and we didn't use contraception." So she'll go to a sexual health clinic, and I used to work in a sexual health service, and I wanted to like demystify what actually goes on in the sexual health service. So she'll go in, and we'll demystify exactly what happens. And there's like a really friendly sexual health worker there. She'll explain that she's had unprotected sex, and then we filmed like 12 different outcomes or 11 outcomes of that. So you've got a chance of pregnancy, chlamydia, gonorrhea, genital warts, syphilis, herpes, pregnancy, HIV, or you get the all clear. But the whole point of each of them is the character will always be naive, like, oh my God, chlamydia, what's that? And the
Exactly.
sexual health worker,
Great learning resource, isn't it?
I will
Incredible.
just like take the time and explain exactly like what the treatment is or what the course of action is. If you get the all clear, the sexual health worker will be like, look, Sophie, you've been really lucky this time. You really need to think about your long-term contraception. And then she explains about like, about the coil, about the implant, about the combined pill and condoms and all of that kind of stuff. So you
Yeah,
can go back and play it again. And like what we found with young people is they would say no to the party, no to having sex, no to doing this, no to do that. And then they would turn around as if like if I passed. And
all
I'm
right.
like, it's not a
Yeah,
test. I'm like,
yeah.
it's not a test. Like, why don't you go back and make some mistakes on behalf of the character and see what happens?
Yeah.
And then when they realize they've got the freedom to go in and try stuff, and because everything has got a consequence, like the like if you make like a wrong choice, there isn't any positive outcome that comes from it. Like it's always a learning curve. Um, like it's just a great way for young people to experiment. And because the character is always naive, and she's got two friends, she's got like a little devil friend that sits on her shoulder. Yeah, let's go to the party. Yeah, let's have a pill. And she's got another one who's like, no, I don't think we should be doing this. And
Humor,
it,
isn't it?
uh, and like things can happen to them as well. So she can end up getting spiked. One of our friends can end up being spiked. One of our friends, like, if she goes upstairs when she's at the party, she leaves one of her friends downstairs who's vulnerable, and she ends up being attacked. There's a load of little learning, like very subtle learning experiences within that episode. So we launched that, um, and um, I think we had like 100,000 young people following the page. But what we've done with that is we just reached out to young people on social media and said like we need actors, we need music, we need makeup artists, we need like everything. And young people just flock towards it.
Oh,
And then instead of keeping the cameras away from behind the scenes, like we're showing like all of the behind the scenes and like, hey, we're on set and we're doing this and we're doing that, and we're engaged with our audience. We then got commissioned for episode 2, which was about knife crime and gang violence. That was like back down in Lewisham. And we went this time and realized we made like a lot of mistakes. Or like and realized there was a lot more opportunities with the second one. So the second one we could concentrate a lot more on the aesthetics of like how it looked. We
mm.
realized that we'd overcooked the first one massively by 455 pages, and we could trim it down and make the decisions like it doesn't have to be as complex as the first one
You
to
don't know
engage
until
with
you
people.
know, though, do you? You got to explore that.
Aye, that's it. Aye, because like some people would go to the party and go like, "Oh, I've been to the party and I've been offered a spliff," and then we'd be like, "No, you've got a 50-50 chance of like a spliff or pill, and
Yeah.
you've also got a 50-50." Like, and it just grew like exponentially. This map was like massive. So what we done with the second one, a lot better was we went down and worked with a youth offending team, police, people from NHS, like emergency room, A&E, sorry, and children's services. And like we basically sat in a room with like about 20 different agencies, and they said, because we were working in Lewisham, which was like the most murderous borough, um, um, and dealing with knife crime like almost like on a daily basis. And we sat down and they told us all of their horror stories, and that's what formed like the backbone to our story. So then
Really?
when we went and engaged with young people, they were like, "Oh, that's happened to my mate." And it could be something as simple as like them getting like a young girl to carry the drugs or carry the knife or carry the gun because the perception is they'll get searched less, and then that young woman being arrested and charged with all of the offences that gun had carried or getting caught with the drugs. And so like that formed the backbone to the story. And so when we went and engaged with the young people, we weren't going in as like police or as NHS or like figures of
Very
authority.
different.
We're
Yeah.
going in and saying like let's make a film. This is what we've wrote so far.
Wow.
And they put like the language and culture and all of that kind of stuff in there. And we worked with gang members, ex-gang members, in with the colleges and schools, and and we created that one, and that launched at the BFI like on a big screen. It was brilliant, like having like a cinema full of like young people and all of their parents. And we got commissioned for episode 3, which was Jacob's story, which is the one I shown when I met you.
And I watch it and I share it in groups now. I share it all the time, and it still does the same thing to me. I'm like, just
I
ignore me. It's powerful, man.
Yeah, well, I like the first one. We had like there was a lot more humor in the first one, I think.
Yeah.
And then the second one with it being knife crime and gang violence, I went down and like met the Ben Kinsella Trust and met like victims of like knife crime and families just devastated by it. So like what I had to do is like service to it, and then like the mental health and suicide one, I've lost like over 30 friends to suicide. And it's just like and we couldn't write it like someone like like being depressed or being suicidal and then just being like follow this path and like today like they're all right.
Wait now, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I like because mental health doesn't work that way, does it? So
Um,
this one was very different. The previous 2 films were about getting the character to an end destination,
yeah.
and Jacob's story is one scene, like, and then you've got a choice of 2, into 4, into 8, into 16. And it's more like the more you watch it, the more you reveal layers to one story as opposed to getting the character to like somewhere.
An end,
And
yeah.
then you get to see the impact that mental health has, like his mom's mental health has on him, or his teacher's mental health and his friends, how they can swing it back round or they can contribute, like, and like it took a lot of planning that one, and like plus we didn't want to show method, we didn't want to trigger anyone, we wanted it to be a resource where people could relate to it and go like, wow, that's what I'm going through, and like reach out for help, rather than it being something that had like a detrimental effect to people. So we filmed that one, and then we got commissioned for a child sex exploitation and grooming episode, which was filmed in Leeds, and that's being released later this year. And then we done one about isolation and loneliness, which was in Essex, and that was the first time that we used more than one character. So in like Essex is like a huge county, and some of the young people were isolated because they lived in a farm, like really remote. So they were picked up in the morning on a bus, especially in winter, drove to school on a bus, and then spent the full day in school, and then all the way back to a farm, and then just like isolated because they're miles away from anything. And then we had like, another character who's autistic. We had uh, our first trans character. We had someone who the parents lived in the city, so they're surrounded by like extreme wealth, but the parents are in London and they're just eating like takeaways and stuff like that. So, and then like someone leaving care. So we tried we looked at like what does isolation and loneliness mean, and then we broke it down to like actually it means a lot of things to different people.
Yeah.
So like it was that one was more of a linear story where you shoot off and see each other's experience of isolation and loneliness, and it comes together. It's a bit like a Breakfast Club, like
Yeah.
80s
Yeah.
movie Breakfast Club type film. Do you know what I mean? But like still with like interactive elements to it. And then we've done a teenage pregnancy and perinatal mental health episode, and we worked with like again that was that so this was shot during COVID, so it was meant to be what was the original location? Anyway, we ended up using the Nightingale Hospital for that one. So this was like a hospital, like a ward, like a labour delivery ward.
Wow.
Uh, the Nightingale was empty up in Sunderland, so we managed to get access to it. So luckily enough, they didn't have to use the Nightingale during COVID. So we had like a 20 million pound set like to ourselves, which was like amazing, like all the right equipment in and all
Wow.
of that kind of stuff. So
Wow.
we worked with the NHS, we worked with like midwives who dealt specifically with like drugs and alcohol, or like we covered everything from like breastfeeding to like stopping smoking, drug and alcohol, domestic violence, disability, um, leaving care, and like, we worked like so we basically worked with like all the top midwives, and they give us all the information that we need. That we then put that into a storyline, and then we had this fictitious ward with like 7 characters. They've all got their own stuff going on, and would flash back to their houses and see like what was going on in their lives. And we had like an evaluation done as well at the same time from Sunderland University, which just like showed like Trylife is just just an amazing way of engaging with young people. We then done another uh another film which was bolted on to the isolation and loneliness one, and it was like a post-COVID
Right.
type film.
Okay.
So it was like young people coming out with like mental health, like coming out of COVID. Like
Yeah.
I know like my stepdaughter, she was only a teenager at the time, and I couldn't think of anything worse than being isolated when I was like, you know, like 13-year-old or whatever from like friends. And
My kids sort of had it worse than the other two. The younger two, it's same age, isn't it? Teenagers to GCS. It's just,
yeah,
it's massive. We haven't seen the effects either yet. They're not
I
in it.
yeah, just horrible. Do you know? Because it's just like a key part of your life, isn't it? That like, you know,
So,
when you learn out about boys and girls and all of that kind of stuff. Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? And relationships and friendships and everything. So um
massive.
we done that, and then we bolted that episode. Like we used the same characters from the isolation and loneliness one. Plus, we wanted to dispel some of the myths about COVID and you know, like a lot of stuff that was going on social media, because like a lot of it was being targeted like at that generation. So
Yeah.
one of the main characters, his parents like died of COVID, like, and we had like a character that was like being quite dismissive, like, oh, like it was not worse than a cold or anything, but like, you know, we have to remember, like, I lost family members through it, and
Yeah.
you know, like a lot of people lost friends and family members through COVID, and so like the good thing is with Trylife is, it's just like it's a really good it's like an intuitive way of learning, and like we can throw some curveballs, and we can just allow people to experiment, uh and then go back and go, right, well, I didn't expect that to happen, or
Yeah.
like, or if you're unsure about something, like especially like say the sexual health scenes, or um you know, like some of the issues that we're covering, whether it's about like sexuality or
Mhm.
gender or
So,
identity or race or like whatever it is, when you've got a character there that you can actually relate to, and
yeah.
then they start talking about their personal experience, like, well, like actually, like, I've just left care, and this is what it's like for me, and then, do
It's
you know
so
what I
different
mean?
than having a like someone in authority, someone from the health board or someone from the police telling you. It's just a
Mm.
different world, isn't it? It's such experiential learning and so relatable. I've never seen anything like it. I love it. I think it's just I think it should be in every school up and down, yeah, everywhere. It just should be. What a
Oh,
resort for teachers to have. I know you've got packs for teachers as well. It's like that's the whole
yeah.
point of it, isn't it? Is it's a learning.
Aye. Well, we've just we're finishing off this e-learning resource now at the moment, and it's rolling out into like 15, 16 areas, like as a test bed this year. We had the evaluation done. COVID like really did not work because like we just like we'd got a lot of momentum before COVID. Like when I met you, when I was at Facebook, I'd been over, like, so we won innovation in youth work, innovation in health, innovation in social care, innovation in business. Came runner up in like outstanding contribution to youth work. We won pitch at the Palace. We won placement provider awards. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then
Your
I got
viewing as well, your numbers. Tell us about like before that bit. Your media numbers are massive, but you were catapulting your
yeah,
reach.
yeah. So like it just went crazy. Like I think it was, I'll get the numbers here just want to make sure I'm right. But like we reached uh hold on. So in 28 days, we reached like 140 million people in America, which is like 65% of all Facebook users. We reached 25 million people in the UK. I think there's only like 60 odd million in the UK.
It was just that trajectory was like when I'd say it was just flying, and then like you say, COVID did
Uh,
you were in America, weren't you?
yeah. And then we
You got
had like
you got to
849 million social media impressions. Don't need to
wow.
say that. And like nearly a billion social media impressions. We reached like 188 million people, which is like a percentage of the planet.
You know
And
it's relevant. You know it's relevant. You know it's meeting an unmet need. You know people want it.
uh,
It
and
is
then like so like a lot of people were coming. So we decided on social media like not to get involved in like politics or religion or anything like that. And like if we're gonna like make fun, we'll make fun, like, so it's like it's not making fun out of someone, it's making fun out of yourself.
yeah.
And
Yes.
so we've started posting like positive like memes and like funny memes and stuff like that when we weren't in production. And it was just like a brilliant way. Like if we're going and engage with like a school or a university or college, we can get the English students involved in script writing. We can get like the drama students, film production. electrician students, like hair, makeup, fashion. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
advertising, marketing, youth work students, health promotion. And you can pretty much like advertising, you know, like we can pretty much get like music students. We can get like pretty much the full campus involved.
Yeah.
And then what happens with the lead cast of each of the episodes? They become so well informed about the decisions because we try to even out the film where it's got like positive and negative outcomes, and they become like peer educators. So like now we're using the actors to go into schools and deliver workshops, and we can put it up on the big screen, get the young people like interacting with it, and then we've created like a load of resources for teachers and youth workers and anyone that engages with young people, like around like drugs and alcohol, sexual health, quality and diversity, relationships, and we're going to keep adding to that. And also the work that you're doing is just it'll sit perfectly on there, so we can like direct people straight over to the work that you're doing. And uh like it's just a brilliant way of engaging with young people, and because the professionals have like helped shape the backbone to the stories with like real life like what they say on a professional level, like on a day to day, but then it's got like the real life lived experience of the young people who put like the language and the culture and like their personal
Yeah.
experiences like in there. Like we managed to have created you know, like some pretty amazing resources. And then off the back of it, we got over to America, and so went over to Hollywood, and I was like sort of presenting Trylife. A lot of the other people I was like surrounded by were like film directors and you know, like selling like horror movies or selling whatever else.
Be like, all right, I have arrived.
And I just like well, I just got there, and like I'm not quite sure what my role is, because like I'd sort of like work with the writers, I'll bring the director and make sure like everything's all like I just like I'm really good at pulling like people together and just making stuff happen. Do you know what I mean? So I guess I'm an exec producer or something in like the film world, but I got up in Hollywood and I was like, I'm not here selling anything. This is what we've created. We've created like the world's most complex interactive film ever made. And like this is what we're doing. And the whole audience like just sort of piled over, and they were like, here's a business card, here's a business card. So
Yeah, I get that.
so that night I was sitting like eating a burger watching Donald Trump win the election. Um and with like exec producers of Crash, and I love that movie. It's about racism and stuff like that. It's brilliant how it's wrote, you know. It's a great movie. Um and then the next morning I had like there was this woman had said, will you come to Compton with us? And I was like, oh, I'd love to, you know, because like I love working in like the dodgy bits, and I've
Yeah.
like you know, I lived like worked in Jamaica and with kids from like Israel and Palestine and Ukraine and like all over. And so I went to her house the next morning, and I didn't even know who I was meeting because it was like a scrap bit of paper with a telephone with our address on.
You as well.
So I just so I
Have
went anyway, and there's pictures of her with like Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott and Steve McQueen, and I'm like, wow, like whose house am I in here?
fun.
And we're watching like Donald Trump, you know, like officially win, and like California was just like in shock. And now I'm like heading towards Compton, and this is like the producer of Blade Runner. She was like, Paul, did I tell you what I'd done? I was like, no, this is the producer of Blade Runner. So went and delivered like some workshops with young people in Compton, and I was saying like you don't have to be like a wealthy white man from Hollywood to make a film. You've got like the power in your pocket with your mobile phone to change the world, and like this is like how we engage with our audience, and like by getting people involved. And when I come walking out of there, we ended up meeting this woman who was like sort of like, what you doing in Compton? And I showed her a trailer of Trylife, and she was on the phone. Terry is a white man. He's been in Compton. You should see his work. It's off the hook. And then I ended up like out having like a few beers with like the heads of the Crips gang, and then I was like, why don't I tell like the real story of like the Bloods and Crips gangs? And then they're like, right, we're in. So I ended up meeting like some of the heads of the Bloods, met representatives from the head of the Mexican Mafia, and then I brought all three gangs together on stage over in Hollywood.
Who does
And
that, Paul? Like, who does? We know at the time this could go either way.
oh, I could have went really wrong, really wrong. But like you know, like a lot of these men, like you know, like especially the OGs, like the original, you know, like the top ones. they want to see change in their communities as well, do you know? And
It's a
so
machine that can't stop, so they need help, don't they, to be able to do
I
that. Mm.
and like and especially doing something interactive, it just lends itself really like towards that. So like after I'd spoke at that event where me and you met, I went and spoke at Facebook Grow, and I was on stage with like Louis Theroux and like Norman J, the DJ, and like a load of others, and they were going to fly us out to San Francisco on the 3rd of March. And then that's when Facebook shut its offices down because of COVID. And like what I was saying to Facebook is like, let's interview these like, you know, the founding members of these gangs, and like that's not like it's not about like bigging them up, how who's biggest, who's hardest. It's about finding out like how they ended up there, the impact on like on their mental health and the victims' mental health, and like have a look at the whole area and the community and stuff, and then in the background be writing this fictitious script of like based on their real life experiences, and like that's like short fly on the wall of like the script, and then reach out to the present day community, like the young people like we have with Trylife, and say like, right, we're looking for new music, we're looking for actors, and we'll follow the kid from the street into audition, into script read through, into wardrobe, behind the scenes, and then boom, you get to play it. And that would have been like Trylife, you know, like first like international film, and then we could have picked that model up and moved it anywhere, like South Africa, Australia, you name it, we could have took it anywhere.
Yeah.
And but like COVID put a stop to that. But luckily enough, during COVID, I'd applied for a bursary from AMR, A Million Realities. And the difference with this bursary to like others was it was all centered around putting the founder on their feet.
Yeah.
Um, and like it was business support, but it was like putting the founder on their feet first.
That's so
And
different as well, isn't it? That's such a great way to look at it, because you can't have your impact if you're not
I
supported. Yeah.
so like they took it away to like Morocco for a week, and they had like a psychologist there. I've not uh I've not done like therapy or like yoga, breathwork, like nothing like that. But I thought, right, if I'm applying for it, I'm just going to throw myself in. Like, what have I got to lose? I'm in my forties. Like, I may as well and it's like I feel like I've worked all my life helping other people, and I thought this is the first time for like me to spend a bit of time with like for me.
Yeah.
And like I didn't know COVID was happening at this point. It wasn't until I think we were one of the last flights into the UK from Morocco. But like it just happened at the perfect time where I could put Trylife down for the first time in like 12 years or something, because it was just full on. And out in Morocco, it just like completely broke us. I think I think I'd like rammed everything in from my past into a cupboard and just rammed it shut, and then I took everything out bit by bit. When I
Okay.
got back, when I got back from Morocco, I done like weekly therapy sessions. Um, I done like EMDR therapy for post-traumatic stress. I done
Yeah.
like uh Hogan's assessment. I done a Hoffman course on childhood trauma. I done like constellation work. I've done like the
But
amount
you,
of therapy I've done must have been about 75 grand's worth of therapy, like easy, and it was all paid for. And like I just I don't know. I took everything. There was times where I took everything out, and I just like, why am I dealing with this? Like I've already dealt with this a long time ago. But then I realized some of it I didn't need anymore, and I could pack that cupboard a
yeah.
lot neater. And I freed up like a quarter of me, like maybe half my brain, I think. It just came out the other end like a different person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With like just, and I realized like when I got diagnosed with mania as well, which makes a lot of sense because like my manic behavior has been probably the driver where trial life's come from. Do you
Need
know
to
what I
be
mean?
it. Well, you just have to have the skills to temper it and balance it, don't you?
That's it. And getting diagnosed with that, and then looking into that, I just realized like, oh, I have these like manic bursts of like energy and like, and just like little things like even like alcohol, like at night time, there'd be times I'd be up from 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd have like a 20-minute sleep at 9 o'clock, and then I'd work through till afternoon, have an hour sleep, then work through till tea time, and then it'll be 12 o'clock at night, and I'm still grafting, and sometimes like a bottle of wine would just like take us from 100 mile an hour to zero, and like I'm just a lot kinder on myself now, uh
Because you're aware.
and
You're aware. When you're in it,
I
even aware of any of this. You're just like, that's just life. That's just me. That's how I am. I don't think you can connect the dots until you've had decent therapy and done your shadow work. You suddenly, it all starts into place, isn't it? You're like, okay, that's why
Yeah,
these are the good bits. This is like the creative bits that are great. These are a bit toxic. So let's kind of
yeah.
sort them out, keep the good bits.
Aye. I mean, like, you just look at yourself in a totally different way. The Hoffman course was just brilliant. That was a week residential. Um, and I came out of that completely like with just a new mindset.
A game changer.
Um, I like some of the stuff I've done as well, like I would never have done but I would never have done I don't know, I just like had personal barriers up against some, like I'm like, oh, God, I couldn't be bothered to do it, and I'm just gonna throw myself in, and but I'm pleased I did. I'm really pleased I did, and like a million realities have just took on a new cohort, and we've had like a bit of input into like the next bit of stuff they're doing, and I've got like a residential with them in October. I think it's a week, and hopefully get to meet some of the latest ones, and then I'm sure they'll do it again next year. But
Each
it's
one pass on your wisdom, and you can pass on it's just,
uh
isn't it? You're relatable, and you can share your story and your wisdom, and you're doing it authentically. That's what Trylife is. You're kind of building in that authenticity and proper storytelling.
it's a great one.
Everybody else engaged. This is my thing. It's about connecting everybody in to play their part and to have their voice heard, not presenting something and going, look how great this is, look what we've done for you. It's like,
Yeah,
do it with us, build it together, because everybody heals collectively then, don't they? That's
uh and I
what
think like a lot of people think like therapy sitting down and like just like complaining, and or not complaining, but like, oh, right, woe's me and all of that kind of stuff. But a lot of the therapy I've done it's quite the opposite. Or maybe that's what my what I thought were. Like, I didn't want to just sit down in a room and talk about how bad my childhood was, or like how or whatever issue. Do you know what I mean? Like,
It's just
um,
all part of therapeutic interventions, though, isn't it? And that is what most people consider is counsel, traditional counselling.
yeah,
Lie on a couch while somebody picks
I,
your brain, and it's not. There's so many different ways. Like EMDR, you mentioned, the EMDR is cracking, brilliant, really good.
I,
Just so many, and you need to explore, don't you? That's the whole point of my work is creating a container that's safe, that people can explore without judgment and without that kind of fear. And it's not like do this and you'll feel better. It's here's loads of stuff. Let's find out what you need, what works for you, and people build their own versions. Then, like you've
yeah,
found what works for you, haven't you?
that's it. And I think like putting Try Life down just like allowed us to view it in a very different way.
Yeah.
Like
I'm glad that you're glad you got some good out of that. Having a pause, power of the pause,
I.
power of the pause.
Oh, it is. I mean, like we've struggled, like we've bounced, like everyone wants to use Trylife, but like trying to bring money in the past has been extremely difficult. Like, oh, it's a brilliant resource. Like, can we use it? Yeah. Like, can we have some money like to help towards it? All right, well, I haven't got any money. There's always been like the case, and it's a real shame that something that's been created by like young people for young people has struggled, and
Do you think that's
getting
because
all
in the places that have this is what I find. I've been talking about this in most of my podcasts so far has been around sort of education, especially beginning ones. And I'm still banging my head against that particular wall that this and this is my personal experience out in the field. The systems that are broken and that are sort of harmful are still trying to fix things using the same system.
I
And
totally are.
new innovations are having the most impact, but they're just stuck on the side. Like, no, we do things this way. This is the way
Yeah.
it's always done, and this is where the money goes. But we actually need that. So can you just give it for free? And the people that are doing the good work are generally very compassionate, usually traumatized themselves, and they're doing it for a reason because they know what it feels like. So they want to help, don't they? And you think, yeah, just
Hmm.
as long as it helps people, it's fine. And that imbalance is it's so strikingly obvious, and it's not sustainable because then the leaders and the people doing the good stuff just burn out and give up in the
Hmm.
end. That thinking has to shift. You can't fix things with the thing that started the problem in the
Yeah,
first place.
yeah. Like I'm not going to name the organization, like any organizations, right? But there's some people with some serious spending power on tackling like health and uh,
Yeah.
well-being issues for young people, and like I've like it's like before lockdown, especially, it was like, oh, come down to London, come for a meeting. And like, there's been times where I've like, do I pay my rent or do I take a chance on this meeting? And like, I've took a chance on the meeting to get
London,
from. I get from Newcastle to London isn't cheap on a train,
Yeah.
and got down there, and then like they're like, it's like like Trylife is brilliant and stuff, but like we've just put like £2 million into this comic strip. Could you like just push it out on your social media? And I'm
Oh, I've had
like
that.
no, and I'm going back home now and thinking like, how am I going to pay my rent? You know what I mean? Like it's like
All this
basically,
way, isn't it?
I do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like you say, like it's things like putting chlamydia advice on beer mats. Like I've never ever been out on like for a pint and thought like looked at a beer mat and thought I'm gonna go and like phone this number and get a chlamydia
Yeah.
test. It just doesn't happen. And
I think,
especially well, for young men, it doesn't like and then same with like a poster campaign. Like,
yeah.
is it reaching the people that you want it to reach? Are they going to read it? Like, what's the impact of it? How can you like quantify and it's frustration um uh uh, for a lot of people, especially when you're using like innovative ways and you're looking at like how young people access media and stuff. Um,
And
and
if
it's not about
you know it's working and you know you're meeting a need and you're like, look, here's the data, this is what works. And they're going, well, what on earth could we do that works? And you're going, hello, it's here, we have it,
uh,
but we just don't know what works. And I
yeah.
don't know whether you agree, but I think the difference is, from my experience, it's the people around the table, the leaders, have the wrong thinking and they don't want to engage with the people who have the issues because they have the solutions. And that's where you and I are different. A lot of other
Mm,
great people doing great work. You just want to listen. You're not the expert. They're the expert in their experiences, and you facilitate that process and they build what they need. Whereas the current purse string holders have got this kind of, we know how to fix it. We'll sit around a table and we'll come up
mhm,
with predictions, and then you will be grateful to us because we're going to spend all the money on what we think you need. And I think
mm,
that's the fundamental difference, and that's what needs to change.
massively.
That's
I
my
there's
opinion.
I no honestly there's like there's loads and loads of projects out there that are doing some brilliant absolutely brilliant work um and it's just I don't know, like it took us a long time to get any kind of credibility, and um and it only feels like it feels like I've done what 7 interactive films now, and we're almost finished this another interactive project, which is due for release soon, aimed at like a younger audience. But it only feels like now, after um like 12 years of creating content, that we're now ready
Yeah.
to like go and say like, right, we've got something. It's just been like a massive struggle, especially like in the climate, like where like all services to young people were like completely decimated. Like youth services were cut 69% on average around the country. In parts of the northeast that was 97% cuts. And then the wonder like why like young people are, like why crime rates and everything else is going up. And it's not just down to police numbers, it's down to like there's a whole generation of young parents that have not been uh like had any kind of support and guidance themselves, who are now bringing up another generation of young people. Do you know what I mean?
Like an absolute no-brainer. Like,
Aye.
it just seems ridiculous that the thinking's wrong and the stuff's being put in the wrong places. But I mean, it's the same for me. I mean, we share the same kind of story. We're always having this sort of conversation but I feel like things are shifting. I think 2025 is definitely going to be kind of a bit of a shift, a bit of a game changer, because all the work I've done over the last decade, it's come to this point where I've got Mojo School now for me is like, wow, it's ready to go. And I
Mm,
thought it was ready 5 years ago, and I was delivering great workshops and I was getting great feedback. But now I know actually it wasn't. That was the learning curves, and but the struggle is so real. But I was talking to somebody last week about this. I think those that really know what they're doing and they're on their path and they're kind of lined up, you can tell, because it's too easy to give up, because the struggle is so tough sometimes. Like you say, I've been in the same position. I've got this money to spend on my kids to do a week shopping or get a train ticket to London.
mhm,
I have to take the chance because I need to. And then you look back and you think it was the wrong move because nothing came of it. But I think, is it really? It builds the learning,
mhm.
does build you always take something out of it. But I think that struggle, I think it's starting to shift a little bit. But it wouldn't be if we'd given up 5 years ago or 4 years ago or 2 years ago.
Aye.
But you dig your heels in and you keep going, don't you? Because you know it's
Yeah. I think with Trylife, we've always bounced from one commission to the next commission. By the time we get the commission in, we've already amassed like like a bit of debt, just trying to like get that deal across the line and just time, and then like you're servicing that, and then moving on to the next project, and like yeah, But
It's stability that's needed, isn't it? Stability and some grounding and stability, so that you know that you don't have to do that anymore. Because then the amount
uh,
of energy that we waste on that, or just on fighting for the next bit,
mhm,
imagine if that energy could be put into doing the stuff that we're really good at. It would be how much
mm. I
more.
think that's why that bursary was so good, because like I got £20,000 a year, um, uh, from the bursary, which took away like me worry about like rent, council tax, and stuff like that. And especially that happened, during lockdown. So like the whole world's just shut down, and then I'm like, like, it was heartbreaking um for me, because uh, a lot of the young people that like sort of come through the ranks of Trylife and we're starting to like go and get like independent film work and stuff. Like everyone's sitting at home watching Netflix and watching television, but like people in the arts weren't covered by a lot of
Oh,
that
I
money.
know.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like you're watching stuff that they've created, and they're the ones that like they weren't eligible for the £10,000 because they don't own a business, like a premise. And then there was just like there was loads of people like, and I just like saw so many freelancers, like having to like sell equipment and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just a massive struggle. And luckily enough for me, I was like sort of lifted out that to like a certain degree, because like I just had peace of mind with that. And then I had like all of that therapy. So I know a lot of it was done like on Zoom and stuff, but um like it was like just a real challenging time, wasn't it, for for
I
everyone.
believe that's because you've got big work to do. Like your story, like it's like you've done so much, but I think it's just beginning, because the whole thing is built, the infrastructure is there, and it's now really, really needed more than even it was before. And I think that had to happen for you to have that bit of peace and
Mm.
space about what was going on for you, because then the next phase is going to be really full on, and you wouldn't be able to get through that without having been able to pause. So
Mm.
it was all
Well,
perfect.
like
Right?
even if Trylife wasn't to survive, like even if Trylife was to come to an end, like I know for a fact that like during all of them years of austerity, I've managed to, one, keep myself employed, I managed to create something groundbreaking, managed to, like, my learning curve has been absolutely massive, and I'm sure I can transfer them skills
Yeah.
to something else. And I've always said that Trylife would never replace a face-to-face youth worker, and like, I hope youth services come back. It would be brilliant to see Trylife not needed, because there's youth workers in every community. Do you know what I mean? But
But still
um,
as a tool integrated, because all the work that I've done with our youth community, there's still such a high percentage, especially after COVID, that can't engage with a physical youth worker because their sense of safety is just shot to pieces. They're in their bedroom. So something like Trylife for that purpose
mm,
still going to be needed. It's still needed as a resource. And that's hopefully what I've done with Mojo School, is to have all this digital stuff at people's fingertips. I don't want people to have to get reliant or just use this, but it's necessary and we know it's working. So if it can be a hybrid version where it can be out there facilitated in the workshops, but a resource to people to access when they need it. Same with Trylife, it's needed.
yeah,
It really is needed.
aye,
So I've got three
aye.
questions for you, right?
Oh
Because
well
we
then,
could ever and ever and ever. And we're still gonna have, I'm still gonna come and visit, and we're definitely need to go and have a pint and put the world to rights for
yeah,
sure. So that's on the card. But three questions I've been asking everybody that I've spoken to, and I haven't
yeah.
given you any prep either. So you're gonna have to just answer whatever comes to your mind.
Oh,
So the
okay.
first question is like a big one, a really big one. How can we change the world? How can we change things?
Um, I think social media can be used as a force for good. I just refuse to believe that that many people being connected, that we have to surrender social media to negativity or fake news and all of that kind of stuff. I just think like there's so much potential in bringing people together by things that you share in common. I've worked all over the world with communities from all over, and there's some things that are universal, and I think it's like humanity, sense of humor, and sharing food with people, or sharing conversation and experiences. And I think like travel and meeting people and being exposed to different cultures, and like actually meeting the human behind it, rather than it just being like sort of this news thing of like, oh, they're coming over here, and oh, they're taking that, and oh, look over there, and all of this distraction now, where people's focus has been pointed left, right, and center, where they're just feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I just think like all of that needs to be counted.
And
So,
it can be a force for good, definitely. Social media, if it's used the
mhm,
right way. That was the conversations that we were having when we first met at Facebook. How do we harness it? Because it's such a brilliant tool, and to try and balance out the negativity. I love
mhm.
it. Yeah, I agree with you completely. It is, and it has to be, not just that it can be. I think it has got to be used.
It's got to be.
People have got to innovate like you and I have been doing to try and make that happen. So second question is like taking it small. I'm trying to build a little toolkit with advice from everybody so that we can have some tips to kind of share, like you just said, sharing things, sharing a bit of wisdom. So give me one thing that people out there could do in their daily life just to help themselves feel better. Any one thing.
I think one of the most useful exercises I've ever done is imagine you've got a 5-year-old you holding your hand from the moment you wake up in the morning. So, like an example is I would get up in the morning at say like 4 o'clock, not have breakfast. I would get ready, brush my teeth, get a quick shower, get ready, brush my teeth, grab my laptop, get my bag, be in a taxi on the way to Newcastle Central Station, sitting on a train for 3 hours, 3.5 hours. I would drum a bacon sandwich and a cup of coffee and a bar of chocolate in my mouth. I would go to meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting all day. I would eventually hit Soho at about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. I have a couple of pints with still at work, still meeting a couple of people, have a couple of pints in Nelly Dean's or something, and then quickly straight over to King's Cross, get a bottle of wine, get back on that train, and be on a train home to Newcastle, get into Newcastle at what, like 1 o'clock in the morning. And there's been there's been times where the train's been delayed. I've gotten in, I've literally just like cried getting into bed fully clothed. Had to get up the next morning, went from Newcastle, like I don't know, to out of Hebrides, been down to I've went down to Brighton in a day and back from Newcastle to King's Cross to Victoria, Victoria to Lewes to Brighton, done a day's workshop and then come all the way back home. And would I do that if I had a 5-year-old child there? Like, no.
Such good advice. That is
And
really
so if you treat yourself, it's very easy. If you had a 5-year-old child, you would not do that one. You would not give them a bottle of wine on the way home. You wouldn't just fill them with 2 pints just to shut them up or just to get them to sleep. You wouldn't, or her. You wouldn't
brilliant.
just ram like a shitty little sandwich in.
This, and I can relate so much because I've done exactly the same.
Uh,
And it's normal, and I have to do it. I have to do it.
where's the fun? Where's the play? Where's the
Right.
laughter? Where's the learning?
Yeah.
Right. And you like, can you imagine how tired that little 5-year-old kid would be? And that
All different kinds of fuel. Yeah.
uh,
I love that. In fact, that is really good advice for me as well. I'm going to keep on with that when I do cross my line.
you
Yeah.
wouldn't do it to your 5-year-old son or daughter. You wouldn't do it to one of your friends' sons or daughter. And that's not just like that's just one day. Imagine just doing that, right? Rinse and repeat. Like
Yeah.
what I've done with Trylife for like
20 hour
for
day.
12 years,
Yeah.
for 14 year or whatever. Like, and then all of a sudden you realize like I would get close to Christmas, you know. I'd get to like end of November, and if you text me, it could be anything. Like you know, it could be something. And like there's been times where I've sat and stared at my phone for like 2 hours, and like just I can't email, I can't text, and then like I remember once being on the phone to the guy that does me branding, and I'm like, oh, can you just do this? Can you just do this? And it was someone I was with at the time was like, you do realize it's Christmas Eve, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even realize it was Christmas Eve because like days just flowed. And then like say a week after being off over Christmas, I would look at that text Jane, and I'd just be like, and I would send it in 5 seconds.
Well,
And I realized I'm not being productive at all. I'm just I'm burning out. And then in January I would like have all the fire in my belly, and I'd go again, and it just had like a detrimental effect to us. So
not
I think that
sustainable. You just can't keep it, can you? You've got to. And at some point, like you had your bit where you realized that I had my burnouts where I had to wake up and think, well, I can't do this anymore. It's ridiculous. Of course.
mhm,
And I think you get to that point where you have to just balance it, and you can still do the good stuff, and you can and you light up, and you still have the fire in your belly, but it's
yeah,
from a of purpose and authenticity,
mhm,
trauma and drive. It's a fine line, but there's a big difference, isn't there?
mhm.
The
Uh,
last one
Go on.
is because we're building a Spotify playlist as well. I'll send you the link later. There's some ace tunes on it so far. It's really big now, but we're building this Spotify playlist, and everyone's throwing in their songs that make them feel good. So, what song, if you're feeling like crap and you want to feel better, what would you put on to cheer yourself up? What's your feel good tune?
Don't Breathe Out by Roots Maneuver.
Okay, that's a new one for me. Right, I'm going to have a little bit of that one later. Don't read that right. Okay, I'll get that straight on there.
Right, Bella.
Yeah, cool. Have a little list. We've had some right random ones coming out, but I love
Oh, kidding.
everyone's version. Everyone's sharing new music as well, which is really cool. So I love
Mhm.
that. Excellent. Right. Well, I'm not going to take up your time any longer because I think we've covered loads of stuff, but maybe we can do a part two at some point and
Well, aye.
where we're at, see if we, yeah, see how far we're going with both of our projects. But yeah, I think we're going to do a little bit more collab and I'll make sure there's all links to Trylife on the back of this as well and on
Aye.
Mojo's.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff.